have something to tell you and you might not like it, but your brand strategy project can go extremely well and still fail when it comes to the rollout. You probably have found a really awesome designer. They have developed a brand guide for you, maybe have done some web work, developed assets, maybe some social assets, social graphics, some templates, something that you can work from and you feel really good about it. But when it comes to the lived reality of putting that brand into practice, that's where everything stops. And honestly, it's that reality, that scenario, that completely changed my business and how I do work with my clients. Some companies really invest in this brand project, whether it be a big rebrand or refinement of a brand or a new product rollout or a very particular campaign. They want to get the messaging right, get the visuals right, and get excited about the rollout because that work feels really good to do. But you go 6 months down the line and the energy around that has piddled out. And you find yourself in the same situation that you were in before the previous brand project. That cycle of up and down as far as energy around the brand that you have created within the business. It's not that the strategy was bad. You can have really good brand strategy and still have difficulty putting it into practice. It's not that the strategy is bad. It's just that the work stopped way too early. The work stopped at the brand guidelines. And those guidelines did not get translated into behaviors, practices, or experiences. So it can be difficult to face that reality, especially after you have made this significant investment, because brand strategy is a significant time, money, and energy investment, especially when you are bringing in a third party to help you get that clarity within the business. Even if it's happening internally with an internal team, it takes a lot of resources. And that's one more thing that you are trying to do within the company that is taking them away from what we'd like to call the actual work, the work that they need to deliver on, whether or not this brand strategy project happens. The work staying external, the lipstick on the pig, the beautiful graphics and messaging and tone and sound design, all these things. If you're updating your website and your strategy deck, but don't change how your brand gets delivered internally, then that work is external. It's like putting on a shirt. You can just put on another shirt. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't change who is in the shirt. It doesn't change how you operate when you have that shirt on. I feel like we tend to get dopamine hits from work that really feels like progress. And I'm not saying that brand strategy by itself is not making progress. It absolutely is. But the dopamine we get from gaining clarity is not progress. Clarity exercises, which is basically what brand strategy is. It's gaining clarity and setting intention, and operates at the intersection of that. It feels good. It feels good to make things clear. It makes our brains feel good. As humans, we like when things are put in their nice, beautiful little boxes, because it says that we're not in danger. When we can understand it, it means it tells our bodies that we are not in danger. The things that we cannot define and put in little boxes, those uncertainties, that's where what do they call it? The alligator brain. It starts to tell us that you are in danger if you don't understand what's happening. And so the clarity that emerges from brand strategy work is fantastic. It feels really good. But if it's not accompanied with application and integration, then it'll be for naught. It'll last as long as the momentum, as long as the energy of that dopamine hit. It won't necessarily be infused throughout the entire organization. And that's where you may get a short-term ROI from that project, from the energy of the rollout or the release, but it doesn't get sustained because nothing else has changed. If you don't make some sort of plan to actually adopt the difference, what difference has this project made in your business? What has changed? If there's no internal adoption plan, then there's this expectation that the employees are to embody this new approach to the brand without them being shown what that actually means in practice. When I work with my clients, we map out the critical components of their brand strategy, and we connect them to behaviors and practices and experiences within the business that either need to stay the same or that will need to change. And then what will it take for those things to change? And honestly, it doesn't, it's not as sexy. It's not as sexy as brand identity templates and assets. It's not. But it's absolutely not. Well, to you, it's not. To me, it absolutely is. Because progress is sexy. Because keeping your promises is sexy. Because creating understanding for your entire organization is sexy to me. I got it. Went on a tangent a little bit, but it seems like a lot of work. It seems like a lot of work to then say, okay, we have just gotten clarity around the who we want to be. Now we need to figure out what that means about in relation to how we operate. And so I just want to give you some kudos, because you very likely have a foundation. You know, when you are first starting out in your business and growing your team and delivering your products or services, this can be very simple. But as the business grows, it gets more and more complex. And so you likely have a really good foundation to start with as far as the application and the translation of what this brand strategy means for everyone else on the team. Now that after receiving, these updated guidelines, you refine your practices by prioritizing the most meaningful business shifts. What is going to put us in alignment fastest when we are going in this new direction or implementing the strategy that we've just invested in? when you say that you stand for something, you've marked a line in the sand. That's pretty much what brand strategy is. Marking your line in the sand. Say, hey, this is our understanding of what's going on in the market. This is our understanding of what our customers want. And this is how we're going to position ourselves to win in both places. You have to pull the thread. You have to pull the thread all the way through all of the processes in the business, all of the systems in the business, so that the decisions that you make are in alignment with who you say you are going to be. And so if you haven't made any changes to your hiring process, to onboarding new team members, to the standards of your service or the behaviors of your leadership, or even and especially your customer experience, you're going to have done a lot of work for nothing. And so if there is no guidance on how to translate this new position into practice, it is only going to last as long as the dopamine from that momentum of the initial rollout. And this is honestly, understanding this changed my business completely, because I was that designer offering or producing brand guidelines and producing these assets and updating websites. And there was some friction that I would always sense or pick up from my clients, especially on website projects. When I was going through the workflow, how is someone supposed to navigate through this site? What are some of the scenarios you've seen? What are some of the experiences the customers have had with the current setup that we either need to remove or double down on in this new website? It was when I realized that those were the harder conversations to have that I got a lot more interested in, wait a minute, there is a gap here. And for some reason, the understanding is that these two things are different. You know, I took the advice of many business coaches and strategists and mentors that I absolutely appreciate. And they, offer one thing. And so I ignored it for a while. But when I started to check back in on my clients and see where they had lost their momentum, they had abandoned the guidelines completely. They had invested in another rebrand, because that work feels really good. It feels good to talk to someone about your vision. It feels good to talk to them about what you believe, your aspirations, what you believe for your brand and business to be in your mind. And it feels good to see something produce from that. But if it's not translated into how your business operates or how people experience your organization, then it is not, you're going to just be on a hamster wheel of doing it over and over and looking for that the gratification of, wow, this looks beautiful, when that's not necessarily the priorities that you need to have right now. So, I realize there's a few critical inflection points where that momentum is starting to be questioned, or the alignment is starting to be questioned, where you say, okay, wait a minute, Who am I? What are we doing? How are we growing? How are we pivoting? Especially like now with AI being a huge conversation for a lot of businesses. It needs to be, if it's not happening within your business. How are we pivoting? How are we implementing it? What does that look like? People start questioning their positioning and how they show up, and really need to take a look at what integration and application of the brand looks like. If you are looking for clarity on what decision to make about a huge pivot or change coming up in your business, you should be able to find direction in your brand strategy. You should be able to look at your brand strategy and say, okay, wait a minute. If this is who we say we are, and this is who we stand, this is what we stand for, this would be the decision that we would make. Now, do we need to change what we stand for? Do we need to make some tweaks? Because this decision over here is the decision we need to make. So we need to make some tweaks to our strategy. That's why I like to call it, it is your North Star. It is the foundation in which you stand. And so when you go to make big decisions about the future of the company, that is where that is the source. And the farther you get out from the founder and the founder's vision and that kind of singular point of truth, the more you should be relying on the foundations that you have set around what your business or organization stands for. It's true. It's true. When you prioritize, or if you just place emphasis on doing these branding exercises, these brand strategy exercises, which I tell you are a lot of fun. It is awesome work. It is good, fulfilling work. If you put more emphasis on that, doing those exercises, then you do the application and integration of that work into the behaviors, the processes, the practices, and the experiences in your business. You are going to not enjoy the fruits of your labor very long. It should not just be a communications exercise. This needs to be a business-wide alignment effort. And so that's why my work has completely shifted into consulting on those gaps and helping people infuse their brand into the fabric of their organization. If you've had a brand project recently, the issue is not always the ideas that came from that or the assets that came from that. A lot of times it is the depth in which you integrated or implemented that into the organization. So I hope I didn't bust your bubble too much, but I would love for you to share in the comments what is something that you've implemented from your brand guidelines and how has it changed your business. See you in the next video.